Hi, welcome back to the Stitch Witch podcast. I'm your host Ourielle, and today we have a special winter episode. I am coming to you in my matching jammies because although I have a full face on, I am pretty much going to spend the whole day at home and I wasn't going to change into uncomfortable jeans and like a real shirt. But it's December and I love wearing my little winter polar bears in December. And now that I've started sewing, I've been thinking about making some new matching pajama sets for my husband and I. Anyway, I thought it would be quite topical to get cozy. I have several beverages with me today. I have a matcha latte, I have a green tea sitting behind the camera. Today we're going to be talking about some winter stash knitting. Before you get too excited and praise me a little bit too much for being really responsible and knitting from stash, I have a confession to make. I definitely did some yarn shopping for Black Friday. I went on vacation. I bought some yarn. I was gifted some yarn. Things got a little messy relatively quickly. So to counteract that by hopefully like knitting from stash, I'm feeling that I might be able to counteract some of that guilt or some of that irresponsibility by like knitting from my stash being good and like knitting things in my library that I purchased at one point thinking that I was going to make, and then things got shinier, things got distracting, and I just didn't end up making them. So here I have a pretty complete list of things that I want to knit from stash this winter. I'm counting winter as December through February, like early March depending, but definitely like by the time we hit March, I would say squarely that feels like spring. But winter definitely gets like really, really cold around this period after the new year. And so we're kind of warming up to, or cooling down, I guess, to things getting really frigid. So I've made this list partially with the understanding that things are going to get like really, really cold and then start to warm up. And then also partially because I just have things in my stash, my pattern stash that I really want to like do. I want to like check them off my list. I have some of this yarn with me here, but if you see me get up a few times to grab stuff, it's to get the other yarn. And then whenever I can't film today, I'm going to have to do B-roll out because I have limited sunlight hours and there's no room in this apartment for studio lighting like my last place. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let's start with the sweaters. I would just rather start there. Reason why I wanted to film this video is because I actually filmed this twice over already. The thing with knitting plans is that they are so malleable. I'm like so bad at sticking to a list. I like seeing this as like a smorgasbord menu kind of deal where like I'm putting what 30 items on this list. I'm not going to knit 30 items. Actually, I did really well in fall. I knit a ton of stuff and I got a lot of things on that bingo board, which I'm really proud of. And of course, a lot of those whips from fall are carrying over into winter. So I haven't included those here, but you can watch my regular knitting podcast episodes to see exactly what I've gone up to in terms of my like day-to-day knitting seasonally. So no pressure to actually knit these, and of course, seeing that a lot of patterns were in my stash already, I clearly have no problem with like having stuff to knit for later. And I don't know, knitting is one of those things where I thought I would be more concerned with like trends and like, yeah, whether something is like in or not, but one, I think winter fashion moves relatively slowly. Like there are obviously like small micro trends, but generally when it comes to fashion, it's more like silhouette style, like big things, and those trends change like over the course of like 5-6 years. So I'm pretty pleased with the fact that like patterns from last year are still looking pretty good for this year. And like I mentioned, I started because I ended up starting to knit this thing that I did not have on my list at all. You know, this wasn't even something that I had like even registered because of course sometimes the yarn picks you. I went on a vacation that my husband surprised me with. It was really, really sweet of him. But we took a mini trip up to Boston and it was really lovely. Like we stayed at Seaport, which is like the nice, you know, harbor area. And because we took our car up, we were able to stop at Waltham, and they have a store called The Unruly Stitch. It's really, really beautiful. I've never been to that local yarn store even when we were living in that area, and I can't believe that I had to move away from there. I actually have like two incredible things from that Boston trip, but one of them was this beautiful plate of, well, actually they sold it to me as Mantelopes, I think, but it's the one from Wool Dreamers. That's what they had skewed this up as, but it's actually not. It's Bryson Little Country Roving, and I know that because it came in like a 5-ply plate. I don't wish on applying a 5-ply ball to anyone because what happened was I had to do 2, 2, 1 and then save that one to ply with a second plate and do 2, 2, 1 again and then apply those two ones together. Sorry, my cat's trying to get into her signature spot here. If we're lucky we can get a little shot of her. Yeah, she loves cuddling up with us. But yeah, this was a miserable process, but it was such a beautiful yarn. I mean, you can see just how much it glows in the light. And oddly enough, this was actually not the most fuchsia yarn they had in the store. I wanted to hold it with something else and just ideally do like a single ply of this and then one ply of something else. So I purchased some Knitting for Olive fingering weight yarn and then ended up just holding this double anyway. So with 200 grams, I'm hoping to make a Sunday sweater from Petite Knit. I had no choice but to cast this on. I mean, it was just calling to me. This yarn is so fantastic and so bright. And it's so cute. And actually, I'm really excited that I did this because the last unspun thing that I knit was the cardigan number 9 by Petite, not by My Favorite Things Knitwear. And that one I knit with 1 strand of unspun and then 2 strands of mohair. And just knitting the 2 strands of unspun is like a totally different experience. I don't know if it's because it's the 2 strands or if it's because the Briggs & Little is like different somehow, but it's so thick. It's so thick and so plush. This almost feels like a big felt sweater because it's so dense and so light at the same time. I don't know how they do it. I've done a yoke block. So when I finished this sunburst section, I did a mid-project block, but the rest of it isn't blocked yet, so that's why the body is a little bit stiff. And also it's kind of like shoved up on some very tiny needles that I refuse to swap out because my husband is borrowing the other cord, and I don't want to buy another cord. I don't want to buy more knitting tools. I think the number of knitting tools I have is ridiculous, and if I'm running out of them, that means I just have too many whips. So that's the body, but it has some beautiful drape, and I knew I had to cast on something fun. I had originally thought, oh, maybe I'll do, oh, I dropped some stitches, let me talk and fix this at the same time. I originally thought I would do a ranunculus, but by the time I had figured out the yardage approximation, and it's around 775 yards if I do 2 strands, and I have 200 grams, or I have the 2 plates. So I decided with that yardage, it would kind of be a waste to do it on the ranunculus, just because I think the ranunculus is such a great sweater to conserve yardage. You know, like you can do like a full sweater with I think like 400 yards or something. So I thought, you know, because I have so much of this, it would be better for me to save it and, you know, do something else, maybe like a full size sweater. And so my idea was, let me knit the Sunday sweater, size down a needle size, and then go up a number size. So I'm knitting a medium on 5 and 6 millimeter needles instead of 6 and 7 millimeter needles, and it's going really well. And this whole thing kind of changed my winter knitting plans because obviously, yeah, this was not stash yarn. This was not a stash pattern. Like everything kind of happened virgin and new, you know, so to speak. So that's not ideal for me. Like obviously it would have been great for me to knit fully from stash, but I'm really happy with this. I think it'll be really, really functional. Something about the Sunday sweater is like a little bit ugly to me, but I kind of like it for that reason. And I don't mean ugly, but what I do mean is like there's something about hand knitted objects that are not the same things that I would buy in the store. And I think that, you know, is not an uncommon sentiment. Like the ranunculus also is not something that I would necessarily buy in the store, but it's like my favorite object. Don't know if it's the pattern or if it's the yarn that I used or the color, but I wear it all the time. Like I wear it at least once a week and I love it so much. And this Sunday sweater I think is going to be really similar. Like I don't know if this like sunburst design looks the most modern and fresh, but it certainly is really wearable. I think it's cute, and I'm really proud that I made it, and it worked up relatively quickly. This was like 2.5 days of knitting, and you know, obviously so much of that is the gauge. Like this gauge is just absolutely ridiculously large, and it creates such a beautiful fabric. So that is like the main thing in terms of like what I'm actually working on that inspired this whole like winter knitting cue. But I do have a couple of other patterns. Obviously all of these are in my stash already, but I have some yarn also for most of these projects, which is like not ideal. Like I don't know why I have so much yarn, but I do want to go through some of them. Another one is a cast on already, and this is something that I'm making for my, I think like festive December knit along from Millie from What's Millie Making. She is an incredible podcaster and artist and just content creator, amazing like creative person on YouTube, and I'm so like honored to have the pleasure of like being in a small Discord with her and plenty of other like amazing talented artistic people. And I'm knitting the Cozy Ribbon Sweater by Maury Knits. She is so cute. She's cute, but also her knits are cute. That's what I meant. I was originally introduced to her work through the Frame Sweater, which is a really lovely kind of large sophisticated cable oversized sweater. I never got to make it. It's definitely on my list. I don't have it though, you know, in my stash, so it didn't make this video because it would not have technically fit the criteria. But this is what I have so far for the Cozy Ribbon Sweater. It is knit flat. It is 3 color work. Yes, it is really annoying. Yes, I can only bear to get through like 5 or 6 rows of it at a night because it is so like, I mean, it's getting better because I like definitely know the repeat now with this kind of diamond pattern. It's not so difficult. But I had all these yarns in stash, and you can see if you like peek into my little bin here. Yeah, that's like the winter color scheme. It's very, very cute, very pastel. It reminds me a little bit of Animal Crossing sweaters, just because of its like tiny little detail in the florets and the little like color work. Everything about it is very sweet. I think that is the operative word here. And I'm a little stressed out about it because I don't think I'm going to be able to finish this by the end of December, and especially not with all this other stuff that I'm knitting, and especially not with all the things that I had from like my fall whips, but that's okay. I think generally as long as I'm working on it and I'm posting to the group chat, it's fine. And someone wanted to knit this sweater, so they started like a second thread called like the Cozy Ribbon Sweater thread, and now I'm like, oh my god, now I like really have to start uploading updates to it. So I haven't worked on it in 2 days. I definitely have to go back and figure that out. But the yarn I'm using is, for the yellow, I'm using from my stash, my Lamb's Pride roving worsted in the like buttercup yellow color, and then the main color is my Eco Plus from Cascade. This is their bulky weight yarn, but it's a really, really loosely applied bulky weight yarn. I think generally it can work up as like an Aran or a very, very thick worsted. And the pink is 2 strands of the Morocco Ultra Wool in the fingering, and I've just applied them together because they are really springy and difficult to work with, and I find that it like gets tangled and it's a hot mess. But generally I think when you're working with so many colors, it does tend to be a hot mess anyway. And I have a couple other colors, like one of them is a cream color, and I think there's like a light green as well in the in the mix, but I haven't gotten to those parts yet. It's knit flat in the back, knit flat in the front, and then you join in the round, and then obviously you do your three standard color work in the round, and I think that part will be a lot easier. I'm just dreading all of this like flat knitting right now. And it's knit pretty large. I think this is like a 6mm needle. It's a 5.5. So like, yeah, as far as like thickness goes, I mean, I'm glad that it's this thick and not like a fingering weight yarn, but I still don't know if I'll be able to finish it by the end of December, which is like technically the deadline, right? But yeah, that is the next one that I definitely already have on the needles. Another project that I really want to knit, but I don't have it cast on yet. I have the yarn. It's stash yarn that I received from my grandmother. I'm going to use Patton's Classic Wool Worsted in the black and the natural taupe colorway. I actually already used that color scheme for a Olga sweater that I made, and I love that color combination. I love that yarn. It works really well. It's nothing like too fancy or precious, and I kind of wish it were a little bit more fancy, a little bit more precious, but I like it the way it is. But I want to make the obsidian sweater. Now, I saw Stitchcraft make this, and hers is actually like a lighter, almost like undyed color, which I like more. I really wish I had like an off-white or like a neutral taupey, yeah, just like a pale color I could use. I'm thinking of maybe bringing in some fisherman's wool because I know that it works really well for color work, and it's got that really kind of natural tone to it. So, you know, hopefully I'll have some B-roll here to compare the two colors, and you can let me know what you think would look better. But I like this sweater because it has really long color work. Like it goes all the way down. It's knit in the round, so it's not like a cardigan or anything, which you know, just it makes it a little bit easier when you're knitting in the round. And I think the sleeves and the body are a pretty unique construction. I don't know what size I would like to make this, but I was thinking it'd be really sick to make this in the A-line sweater shape, but in a dress, like almost like a tunic or a dress style, like a mini dress. Yeah, I just think that'd be really cool. I don't really know if I would do it that way just because obviously it'd be way more knitting, but I do think it would create like a very interesting effect. Okay, just for this one section, for my obsidian sweater, A or B? This is the fisherman's wool. I feel like maybe fisherman's wool, but they're kind of the same. Like one is slightly cooler. Does one look lighter to you or no? I don't actually know if one is lighter than the other. And then if you want to see the actual version I have, like this one, this is what it ends up looking like. And of course I actually do have like a creamy white, but this one feels too yellow. Yeah, so I don't know which one would be good with black. Let me know. This is taupe, this is the fisherman's gray, and then that one is the Aran from Patton's. Yeah, let me know. And if I could figure it out, maybe I could even stitch fiddle like some kind of like bottom border repeat, so that way you could get some of that top yoke part down on the bottom as well. TBD on whether or not that feels like a 2025 cast on. Like it just feels like it's a little bit further down the road for me because I have so much stuff like, you know, on my needles already. Like all of my needles are being used. I have like no spare needles right now, which is difficult to admit because I have like 4 sets of interchangeable needles, and then I have like repeats of a lot of stuff. Granted, my husband is using like 2 or 3 sets right now. I have over a dozen whips right now that are like actively being used, and that is embarrassing for sure. Okay, I also have finally yarn for my Lonely Leftovers vest. This is from Wool & Beyond, and I have had this pattern from the early days of when I started buying patterns on Ravelry. I think because I was really attracted to the I-cord and the garter stitch being like the easy stitch because, you know, you're just knitting, you don't have to purl. And when I was learning that like stockinette required you to purl flat and everyone was complaining about purling, I didn't realize that mostly continental knitters complain about purling, and like I'm an English knitter, so knitting and purling are almost the same action to me. It's really not that big of a difference. I don't experience rowing out, but I think, you know, you hear something over and over again and you get like brainwashed, right, into thinking that everyone's opinion is right. But I heard this opinion that purling was annoying and, you know, knitting flat is so much better, blah, blah, blah. Like when you can do garter stitch, it's so much easier. So I kind of was influenced into this sweater pattern or this vest pattern. But I think it's a lovely pattern. I think for me, the reason why I haven't made it until now is because I didn't know about the scrappy look. She does give you instructions on how to rotate your yarns to have like a nice gradient or a nice fade. And it requires you to kind of have 3 yarns and you like rotate one out at a time. And that way the color changes don't look extremely drastic. But going through the projects that I saw on the Ravelry page, I don't think I was particularly enamored by any of the scrap versions. I really liked some of the solid ones more. But at the same time, I felt like the solid ones weren't that compelling as like vest patterns, just because if I wanted just like a plain vest, like I would have just done like a different vest pattern, you know? So it sat in my pile for a really long time. It also requires a rather large gauge of yarn, and I didn't have enough of like a bulky yarn that I wanted to use on a vest and not a sweater. But recently I was at Joann's, and this was like my Black Friday purchase. They had this really beautiful color changing 100% non-superwash wool yarn, which if you go to Joann's or if you are stalking their app all the time like I am, which I should really stop now that I'm like not buying yarn actively, you'll see that a lot of their 100% wool yarn is actually superwash, which is fine. Like I don't have a vendetta against superwash. I just don't prefer it. I don't buy it often. I found this really, really beautiful like chromatic twisty yarn that kind of changes color every other like stitch, so it kind of like rotates around. It reminded me a little bit of like Spin Cycle or I think Junction Fiber Mill also has like those kinds of, you know, dual color changing yarns. And so what it does is it creates a really beautiful fade. I had a swatch sitting here on this couch and then, you know, my cat knocked it over probably, so I can't find it for you right this very moment, but I will obviously insert some B-roll footage of that yarn so I can show you. So I have enough of this really interesting, it's called like Winter Sunset or Winter Sunrise or something like that. I have enough of this winter colorway to make the Lonely Leftovers vest. I just don't know what color contrast trim I want to do because you need to do a contrast color for the I-cord. My first instinct is like do something pink because that's really easy. You can do fuchsia or you can do baby pink. Both of them will look cute. I know another option I could do is black, but I think black could look a little 80s and I don't know how that would go. So TBD on the actual I-cord strap. If you have any ideas, like let me know because I have pretty much all the colors I would need to make an I-cord with. Like green, purple, cream, black, white, gray, you know, yellow, whatever. Yeah, I'm kind of at a loss for what color I want to pair it with because I don't know if I want it to go more neutral or like to actually match the yarn, but the yarn is pretty loud. Yeah, really perplexing there, but I think because it's a pretty bulky vest and you're not knitting the entire front, it'll go relatively quickly. Obviously there's a lot of I-cord in it, but I don't mind knitting I-cord. I kind of like it. It's a very it's definitely a very repetitive process, but I like I-cord more than say like double knitting, like a double knit button band. That's not fun. Like I don't enjoy that whatsoever. It's easy, but I don't enjoy it whatsoever. I-cord is easy, repetitive, but like the thing that you get at the end is like kind of fun. So Lonely Leftovers. Okay, the next three are all petite knit patterns. Now, I never feel bad about buying a petite knit pattern because I just feel like she makes really commercially viable garments. And not everything I knit like needs to look commercial, right? Like I have a lot of stuff that looks like hand knit and I like that look, but I do think a lot of the stuff that kind of has that commercial look is really wearable. And there's a great deal of customization you can do to the rest of the garment to make it more fun, should I want it to be fun. And one of the examples of that is the Olga sweater. I already knit an Olga sweater, but I would love to knit another one, and I would love to knit a large one. When I say large, I don't mean like size large. I knit the small for my first one, so I was thinking maybe I would do a medium. I mean, I couldn't knit a large, honestly. I think it would just be like a lot of knitting to do. I would do it on 4mm needles, which is fine. I usually knit on 4mm needles, but yeah, like just knitting like a sweater 2 sizes large, like to the full length, I think would be a lot of work. So TBD on what size I want to do, but I saw this Instagram photo of a really beautiful rainbow Olga sweater, and I just could not get that out of my head. I don't know if I would do the same exact color scheme or if I would do the same kind of like base color, but I know I would like a somewhat neutral background with really, really colorful stripes. I think that would look so fun, and it would be such a great way to use up, you know, my scraps because I have a lot of disparate scraps that don't really compel me to turn them into hats. I'm not a huge hat knitter, but I also would not have enough to make like a quilt or like a granny square, like maybe a cushion cover or something like that. But I don't know, something about like a home thing that I'm just gonna sit on with my butt kind of feels like a waste to knit or crochet. And now that I sew and I've been doing some sewing stuff for the house lately, it just feels like a lot of those home decor items might be better and even more effectively done through sewing and through like a woven fabric over a knitted or a crocheted item. And yeah, it just feels like kind of a waste to use my expensive scrap yarn on like a bath mat, right? So I think the Olga sweater in a rainbow colorway would be really cute. Like I said, I would want to do it in the same, not the same color scheme, but like the same idea as the reference image, but I would want it to be full length, unlike my last one, which was cropped. I only really wear skirts, I don't really wear pants. And when I wear pants, they're pretty high-waisted, like flare. They're like skirt-shaped pants. Basically, like I wear very wide, very like big, high-waisted pants that are shaped like skirts. They just have like a split down the middle. So all of my sweaters that I knit are pretty much knit to that like crop skirt / dress length. But this one, I think I want to build like a sweatshirt. I have the LA Apparel big, cozy, heavy cotton sweatshirts, and those are my favorite sweatshirts of all time. They're built very, very relaxed, very large, and I do just think it'd be really nice to have a sweater version of that. And then the other two are Dagmars. The Dagmar is like a dream knit of mine. On my bingo board, I have dream knit on one of my things, and this is definitely going to go there. I was thinking to start with a sweater, and then I thought, why bother? I might as well just like do it steeked, like make a DIY steek version because now I know how to steek. But that sounds like, it sounds too easy. I don't really know if that's like something I can do. Yeah, I mean with a cardigan, you just need to add the stitches in the middle. I'm thinking I can just steek the Dagmar cardigan, but I might start with the sweater, I'm not sure. I don't have yarn for this, so ironically enough, this is one that I actually don't have yarn for, and the one that I actually want to knit the most, you know, go figure. I think it's because with a cabled sweater or cardigan like this, one, she's asking for pretty bulky weight yarn, so I think I could do it with like 2 strands of fisherman's wool. Ideally I wouldn't because that would be really bulky, but when I did a honeycomb cable swatch last time on the needles required, it was just like way too thin. And then I tried it again with my Eco Plus, which is like a thick plusher yarn, and it still came out pretty thin. So I don't know if it's me or or what, but I think I just need like a bigger yarn to do this kind of project. And I could only do so much swatching because those cables take forever to do. I'm new to cables, by the way. Did I mention I've never done cables before? So it's gonna be tricky, I think, to start with such a like delightfully cabled and textured cardigan. And of course, there are no repeating cables. These are all like individual different cables. Of course, there are repeats because there are sections, but like, you know, it's not a sweater number 29, you know, where you're repeating the same thing over and over again. So, you know, jury's out on whether or not I'll be able to do this, but I think if I could tackle a cable knit, this would be the one that I want. Like, I don't really want anything else. I mean, I do, but this is one that I already have in my stash, and it came out on my birthday, and I was like, oh my god, petite knit. And I remember when she was teasing, so to speak, like she had posted on her Instagram and she was like, it's gonna come out later this week, or it's coming out like early in October, blah blah blah. And I was following along like a hawk. Like, I was watching her stories every day. She was popping up like first on my list every single time I opened the app because I was so eager to check on the status of that Dagmar cardigan with the Dagmar jacket. And yeah, I still haven't made it because I'm still too scared to do as many cables as is on that jacket. It is just like a behemoth of a thing. But yeah, I would love to make that. A third thing that I wanted to make from petite knit, this might have been poorly said earlier, but I also have plans to make a cloud sweater. Now, I have a friend in my knit along group that is making a cloud sweater in another variegated yarn. I think it might be Noro yarn, I'm not really sure. But I have been looking for a sweater pattern that I can use for this Lion Brand Dreamscapes yarn. Now, I bought this on Black Friday. This was the other Black Friday purchase that I made. Well, I made a few, but this is one. Yeah, it is a really, really gorgeous kind of color fading purplish lilac yarn. I saw it and I was like taken aback because I love this yarn color combination. It's so pretty. So yeah, I think Dreamscape is a great way to put it. It's very airy, very romantic, very soft. Lilac is a really hot color for me this season for whatever reason. I think it started with the ranunculus and then never stopped. But I think purple yarns are not super easy to come by. I don't know why. And then paired with that, I have this Croy sock yarn, you know, from Patons, because the Lion Brand yarn is polyester. I never knit with polyester. I actually have never knit with polyester. I have crocheted with polyester and acrylic and all that stuff. But when I learned to knit, I already had a little bit of a stash of wool yarn, and I just kind of was like, knitting is so cumbersome. Crochet is really fast, and so I don't really mind crocheting with acrylic, but something about knitting like felt really slow to me. So I didn't feel the need to, and also you use far less yarn with knitting than you do with crochet. So to me, it just felt like, why bother having a, I don't want to say like worse product, but it feels like a lower quality product, right? Because it's not as breathable. You know, it doesn't like endure as long, or like it does endure for a really long time, but like not for good reasons. And it just didn't feel as luxe of a product. Let's just put it that way. Acrylic oftentimes is like a cheaper material. And if I'm going to put all the hours and labor into a piece and I have the money to spend on better yarn, like why not? But when I saw this yarn, I really just like, I liked it. I liked it a lot on its own merit. And I was like pleasantly surprised by the feeling of it. It didn't have that kind of like pound of love or like Karen Super Saver feeling that a lot of these yarns tend to have, which like some people don't mind it, but like I used to work with that kind of yarn and it definitely has that kind of like slippy, almost like staticky feeling. Like I just feel like when I work with that yarn for a really long time, I'm about to, you know, shock myself. So I don't enjoy that aspect of the plastic yarn, but this yarn did not have that. It was really soft, very plush. And I figured if I held it with Croy, one, it would kind of marl the whole thing a little bit, and I think that's quite an interesting look. And then two, it would boost a little bit of the you know, the sweater's wool content. And I don't think it's going to be a super significant amount. I think by weight, it'll be like 25 or 30% wool, because the Croy yarn is 75% wool and then 25% nylon because it's a soft yarn. But, you know, even so, I think it'll give me just that little bit of actual wool bounce that'll make it quite pleasant to work with. And ideally, the color isn't hideous. I haven't swatched it yet, so I'm not sure if I'm going to like it or hate it. But I think the cloud sweater will look really cute. And when I finally saw someone actually knitting up a cloud sweater in variegated yarn, I decided, yeah, that's the one that I want to do. I already have it in my pattern library and I never actually made it. So yes, that is the last petite knit thing that I actually want to make this season. Next, I have a levitate wrap, which is really exciting for me because I made a levitate wrap last year. It was too small and I knit it off gauge. So I did this on purpose, by the way. I didn't want a really drapey fabric at the time. I was like, I want like a nice sturdy wrap. I want it to be like thick and plush, blah, blah, blah. I knit it, I think 2 needle sizes down. And then because it was really oversized and I didn't want it like extremely oversized, I also sized down. Or maybe I kept the same size, but like whatever, it ended up being way too small. Like I tried it on this year. I also gained a lot of weight this year. So maybe last year it was like just relaxed, and then this year it's definitely tight. And I don't want a tight levitate wrap. If I wanted a tight wrap, I would do like the ballerina wrap top or something like that. Like I would want something that is actually intended to be tight. And I was thinking of either the ballerina wrap top or the Mayball wrap top or the Robinson wrap or any of the other like tighter wrap tops. I think Rebecca Clow also came out with one, but alas, those are not in my Ravelry library, so oversized it is. And now that I've made one already, I feel like it's much easier for me to like start the actual thing again. There's a lot of activation energy required for me to like parse a new pattern, and it's difficult. And there are a lot of like tricky bits, and I think when I reach a tricky bit, I'm like, oh my god, I don't know if I want to knit this thing, but once I do it once, now those tricky bits are familiar, so it's a lot easier to do. So yeah, I think levitate wrap would be nice. I'm going to be using some Lion Brand Roving Origins. I have it in this like blushy pink color that's really cute. And I was thinking of holding it with 2 strands of like a lilac-y cool pink mohair, and that way I get a really cute purpley pinky marled like ballerina wrap top. I think that'll be nice. I have a matching set of mushroom colored yarn. It's the same kind of mohair and roving yarn combination, and that one is definitely like more taupe. I think this could be equally great in a mushroomy taupe color. It's not a color combination I wear frequently, but I did used to have a handful of commercial sweaters from like Forever 21 and H&M that were kind of that mushroomy color. So I'm gonna try to go through my library stash or my pattern library to see if I have something that's like more funnel neck. I'm not sure, because for me, and there are a lot of like free patterns out there, so I'm sure I could like look for a free pattern, or I could do like the step-by-step cardigan or something like that. There's like no shortage of options for me, but yeah, I'm between the mushroom and the pink for that particular wrap top. I think the pink would be cuter. I think the mushroom like seems more versatile. I think people generally think neutrals are more versatile. I don't necessarily wear neutrals more than I wear colors. Like for me, I don't really feel more comfortable wearing tan than I do wearing purple. Like I would sooner wear a purple cardigan over a tan cardigan and jeans. Like I think those are equally the same to me. I don't know what the difference would be. Maybe comfort, like maybe people feel like color is like special or bolder or something, but yeah, like the neutral color to me is like not any easier to style. So yeah, I think I might need to do something more fun with that mushroom colorway, but anyway, it's a really lovely yarn. It's so squishy. That Lion Brand Roving Origins paired with mohair is like some of my favorite fabric to get out of a yarn, especially if you can knit it at like a 6mm. So that would be the other caveat, is I would want it to be a relatively wide needle project. You don't get a very loosey-goosey fabric out of it because it is like a lot of yarn. Like you're getting a relatively thick unspun texture with the 2 strands of mohair that fluff up really nicely and they have a sheen, so you do get like a pretty robust fabric, but I love the way that it feels. It's like a cloud. It feels just like this Sunday sweater, which is like thick and dense and plush, but also light as air. I don't know how they do it, but yeah, that's that. And then I also have the Moodiversary slipover. This was one that I originally was going to do for my knit along because it's a vest and it's small and it's 2 colors at a time, and I thought it was going to be like for sure like a better option, but like literally no one voted for it when I asked like my knit along group like, hey, what pattern should I make? Every single person voted for the cozy ribbon sweater. So that's what I cast on, but I would still love to make a Moodiversary. I think it'd be nice closer to the end of winter because again, it's a vest. So, you know, when you still need warmth in your torso, but you don't necessarily need like super, super long sleeves, I think that could be nice for layering into the springtime. So not something I'm knitting at the moment. And again, it would be a really great use of scrap yarns. I have a stash of yarns that I've already picked out for this, but you know, like we'll see when I get to the end of the winter season, you know, what I have in stash and like what's been used and what hasn't been used. But I think that would be a really great one for transitioning out of winter. Okay, let's move on to accessories. I was thinking for accessories, I wanted to make a couple of wearables. Now I moved, I lost all of my hats and my head coverings, so right now I'm left with only one. I have the Cozy Winter Cap from Lorelei Designs, and of course I have a couple of like shawls and stuff that you could, you know, wrap around your head, but I really would like to knit some stuff, especially because I have these patterns in my stash, and yeah, it would just be nice. So one of the things I wanted to make was the Forever Baby bonnet. That one I have been saying that I wanted to make for a really long time, and I haven't made it yet. So that's fully on me. It's because I don't know what yarn to make. I had yarn for it. I bought yarn for it last year at Downtown Yarns, which is like a really special, tiny little yarn store in New York City that's like, it's very trendy, it's very cool, all the people there are very aspirational, you know, like they have a knit group, but it's so claustrophobic in there. Like I love to visit, but like only 10 people can be in that store, not even 10 people. Like, I think it's really only comfortable if you are the only person shopping in there, but then if you're the only person shopping in there, there's like 3 staff members and they're all kind of hovering, so yeah, I like the idea of that yarn store. I don't always love shopping there, but I ended up using that yarn for this cozy ribbon sweater. So I have to figure it out. It is like a DK weight bonnet, and you could probably just substitute with anything else, but I do want the yarn to be soft. So yeah, TBD on what yarn to use there. I also really need a scarf, like a regular scarf. I have obviously the Pressed Flowers kerchief on here because it's a free pattern, and I obviously downloaded it, and I really love the fact that you can continue to add the floral repeats to make it bigger and bigger, which is just brilliant. I saw someone who did 3 rows of the little flower repeats, and it's actually like a mini shawl, and I think that's beautiful. But I have mini shawls, and they're not the most functional thing because I want to wrap something around my neck. Like, I want a rectangular thing. So to fulfill that fantasy, I have the hood scarf by Pearl Soho. It's a 2x2 rib, like, it's a long tube, and then there are increases to shape for the head, and then it goes down again, and it's just one of those, like, trendy things that you, like, wrap around your head. Honestly, you could just use a regular rib scarf. Just have it be wide enough to wrap around your head, but something about the curved shape is, like, very aesthetically pleasing. I think it'd be nice. Oh, I also have, so I forgot to mention this, but on my winter queue, I also want to knit some kind of small accessory for my cardigan number 9, because I bought a lot of that Nutiden in the minty green. I have some Lang cashmere that matches the unspun perfectly, and I think it'd be really lovely to do something like close to the head and neck. I was thinking either a skinny scarf or some kind of like a head covering, just something that matches the cardigan perfectly, so that way when I wear it, it's like matchy, 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 matchy. And if I have enough, maybe I could even do like colorwork mittens, but I have so much of that Nutiden yarn and I love the feeling of it, and I love it even more held together with a mohair. I think it'd be really cute. So That's not on this list, but I'm looking for some kind of skinny scarf. Ideally, I want a skinny scarf that's like not tapered, because I don't like the look of a tapered skinny scarf. I mean, maybe I do, but yeah, I don't know. I think there's something nice about having like actual blunt edges, but I haven't decided yet. I do know that I want to match the cardigan. I know I want to wear it with the cardigan, and I really don't need to wear it outside of it. So it's more like an accessory than it is a functional piece. I think it's one of those things that I'm going to hang it up on the hanger, like with the cardigan. Like it's going to be like a two-piece set. Speaking of like a not super functional thing, but like something cute, I have the fake sweater scarf also. This is a Suzanne Mueller design. Beautiful. I mentioned this earlier in my like plans to knit with my stash video, which I'm realizing I make like every 2 months. So much stash, so little time. But the yarn that I was going to make with it, I've actually turned into this cozy ribbon sweater, so I'm not going to be able to use that stash for this fake scarf. But I'm not really sure what I want to make it with, because I have a lot of, you know, this quantity of yarn, which is like less than a real sweater, less than a scarf, but like more than like a hat or a pair of gloves, right? But a lot of the yarns that I have are, I don't want to say like special yarns, but they're like variegated yarns, or they're colorful yarns, or they have speckles of some sort. And I think something this classy should be done in ideally kind of like a plain, the plain boring thing. So originally I was thinking I could do it in like a fisherman's wool. However, fisherman's wool is scratchy, and I don't know how much I would love to have fisherman's wool like on me. That being said, you wear this kind of like a dicky collar or like a capelet, so it's not really touching your neck. And in that instance, when I think about it, it could be really functional. And yeah, if it's just like a textural layering piece, like I'm just using it for looks, I think it could be nice. I could also do it in like a Patton's classic wool worsted. I have a ton of the charcoal, and right now none of the charcoal is being designated to be used for anything. I was originally going to make like a chestnut dress or a no-frills cardigan for 2025, but I could spare like 2 balls, you know, to make a cute little fake sweater wrap. But you know, TBD on that. I'm not actually sure like what I want to do. I do know I want one though, because it's cute. And I also need to start over my vertices unite. I mentioned that in my last video. That was the regular podcast video, but I messed up on section 3, and then I figured, you know, we'll just go back to the drawing board and we'll figure out a new color scheme. I haven't started that yet. And honestly, I don't think I will anytime soon, because I just have so many garments on the needles, and I don't need another big shawl at the moment. It's just one of those things that like I want to make a shawl every year. And so, yeah, I can start that in 2025, but I do want to do a big shawl. And then I have a couple other guys. I have an Oslo hat, a Joanna hat, and an antler toque. The antler toque I want to make because I want to practice cables before I hop into a sweater, and it's a free pattern from Tin Can Knits. I think it uses worsted weight yarn, which I have plenty of in my stash, so no real hardcore plans on what color I would want to do that in, but I'm sure if I, you know, go through my stuff, I can figure it out. I'm thinking maybe a brown, and I actually have the yarn with me because I have almost finished my bluebird cardigan, which this has been on the needles like for way too long, but there's something about the DPS that I really didn't like, but I finally freaking finished this sleeve with the cuff. So yeah, I only have one more sleeve to do, and then I have the button band to finish, and I don't think I'm going to use like that much yarn at all, because what is this sleeve? It's like so tiny, right? Because the yoke goes down so far, and I have really short arms, and no, this is not a cropped like sleeve. This is like a full sleeve on me. Yeah, it is just small. But I think I must have like 3 or 4 balls of this left over, because I bought enough for a really, really big piece. So I think I could easily do a matching hat. It just would be really boring to have a brown hat on black hair. I'm on the market for a really nice like goth dramatic winter black coat. But I don't have one for winter. I have like a deep winter one, but it's like a puffer, and I rarely ever wear puffers because I'm not out for long enough. Like when I'm in the streets of New York and I'm hanging out with friends outside and we're walking around for a whole day, yes, but usually I'm commuting, right? So I never need something so big, but I'm in the market for a black jacket. But for now, my overcoat is brown, so it would match this cardigan, it would match my overcoat. It would be nice to do an antler toque in brown. I'm tired of knitting with this chocolate brown color. It's not usually my color palette, and it's boring, and this yarn is like it's so flat. It's very rich. It's beautiful. I have no complaints with it. It doesn't bleed. It's not fussy at all, but it is just brown. It's a brown yarn. And I don't know if the cables would show up very well. So, you know, not sure exactly what I would do. I might do it in like a lilac. I think that might be cute. I have enough of my ranunculus yarn and the matching mohair to make a hat out of that. So that's also an option. And I love lilac with brown, especially like, this is the yarn I'm talking about. This is my ranunculus yarn. I love this shade of purple with my brown overcoat. Like this combination looks so cute. So I think I might just do it in purple. I'm sure I'll have a lot of this pink left over from, well, maybe I won't. I mean, I think I will because I have a lot of balls of this, so I might have enough of this to make it in. So hats are kind of like whatever's left over, right? So same with my Joanna hat and same thing with my Oslo hat. Not exactly sure what color I would do it in, but I have those patterns in my library and I'm sure I could find something. I'm thinking maybe a pink, maybe a blue, maybe a gray. The Oslo hat maybe I could do in this brown because it's flat and stockinette, so I'm not so worried about texture. And then the very, very last thing on this list is the holiday balaclava. This is a free pattern from a Korean designer. I'm not sure her name, but I started it last year in a beautiful Noro, but the texture kind of got lost. And I didn't really love the fabric of the yarn that I was making, but I think it'd be really cute. I have a Noro colorway that I think would be absolutely perfect, and I have a special bedazzled rhinestone button that I think would look absolutely beautiful. I just really want it to be quite classy. I think a hood is cute. I've been seeing a lot of hoods, like I know hoods started like last year and the year before, but I think they really started picking up in the knitting world recently. So a lot more people have been making hoods. A lot of people have been like wearing more hoods out. And I really want a hood that has a neck. So unfortunately this one does not have a neck, but I already have the pattern and I haven't actually finished making one. So I would like to at least finish the holiday balaclava and then we'll go from there. The one I'm looking at is like the Jose hood. I'm also looking at the November balaclava. Is that what it's called? The one from My Favorite Things Knitwear. It's got like little cables on it. So we'll see like later down the line if I want another one. But for now, I think the holiday balaclava would be perfect, especially if I have like a cute little special button. So with that being said, I think that is everything on this knit list. It is extremely, extremely long. But I have great and total faith that it'll be really a great menu of options for the coming year. And speaking of the next year, I wanted to show you this thing that I have, which is my knitting planner for next year. Last year I was working in a Hobonichi and I was keeping track of what I was doing in a Hobonichi, and then I flipped over to my like mini Fox, which is cute but just absolutely way too tiny, and it's hard to log my daily progress in here without it feeling like so fussy. Yeah, it was just easier to print things out. But I cut this half off. It is a Erin Condren life book, but it's Hello Kitty and Friends themed. And it's cute. It's really, really cute. And I really like the details. Like they really like went all out on making sure the inside was adorable. And here are the spread positions. So I kind of had this whole idea of like how to actually use this planner. Oh, and speaking of like planner nerdiness, it actually comes with like a vellum. First of all, there's a dashboard on the front, and then there's a vellum sheet, literally just for texture. Like there's no purpose for this besides like they wanted this to look good. It doesn't add any functionality. Like maybe it protects the first page, but it's these little details like this that I love. Like there's just a dashboard here, like fully useless. I don't know why they put so much effort into this like mass-produced thing. And there's a section here that I'm going to use to like write on my little goals, and yeah, I'm excited. I already came up with a layout idea for how I'm going to use the monthly spread and like what I'm going to do. Yeah, this is like the like planner nerd in me. Like I just want to like get this up and going. I like the Hobonichi, but it was so little. Like I bought the little Techo, so it was half the size of this notebook. And I think there's something really cute about a little notebook, but for me, I'm just not a little notebook girl. I have big, beefy American girl handwriting, and I just can't do it with these like tiny little Japanese grids. They're just too little for me. So hopefully next year I will have like a whole book filled with like juicy, delicious goodness in terms of like my knitting and my sewing and my crafting. Yeah, really excited for next week's podcast. I'm not going to film it today just because I think 1 week is a little bit too small of a window, so maybe 2 or 3 weeks would be comfortable for me. But alas, this was a lot of talking and a lot of like plans. So hopefully by the next time we talk and we film, you'll be able to actually see some of these things like in action. So with that being said, thank you so much for watching. I love you guys very much. I hope this was entertaining. I hope you got some knitting, some self-care, some relaxation done, and I will see you on the next one. Bye now.